Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ogden. My name is Dylan Zwick, and I am glad to be leading worship today. This is the third Sunday of the month, and for our third Sunday, the theme is, who are we called to be in these times? And we're usually joined by a guest minister. Today, we are excited and honored to welcome Jennifer Gracen to our service, who is joining us online. Thank you all for joining us here today. We're so glad you're here in this community that strives to be loving, inclusive, and compassionate. One way to connect with this community is to let us know you're here. If you're a newcomer, welcome. We're so glad you're here. We encourage you to fill out a newcomer card in the pews and put it in the offering basket when it comes by later. And please stay and chat with us after the service. If you've been a long-time member of the congregation, we encourage you to wear your name tag. This helps everyone feel more connected and helps our newcomers get to know you more easily. If you haven't already, please put your phones on silence. There's also please remember, there are two exits from this room, there and there, and two exits from the building in each direction. We are so glad each and every one of you is here today. Welcome. Now please join me in saying the chalice-lighting words from your order of service. We light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and for the energy of action. I do want to offer just a quick apology. So our usual tech support isn't here today. So I am sort of serving both functions. So if you see me kind of running to the back at some points, that is what is going on. And there might be a little bit of a delay between when I'm up here and when Reverend Gracen joins us. But shouldn't be too long. All right. Reverend Jen is joining us from Cincinnati, Ohio, where she is in her third and final year serving as an interim minister at St. John's Unitarian Universalist Church. I didn't know we had saints. Reverend Jen has been an ordained UU minister since 2014 and is an accredited interim minister. Reverend Jen spends her time playing with her 5-year-old, reading, and leading a Dungeons and Dragons game for UU ministers. I wonder if they're all clerics. All right, we are pleased to welcome Jennifer to our congregation here this morning. And as I said, she should be joining us on that screen in just a moment.
Morning. Morning. I'm pretty sure St. John's is the only UU church named after a saint. And interestingly, there are no clerics in my group. So I want to start by sharing some of the words I love the best. These words called Choose to Bless the World by Reverend Rebecca Parker. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting, Any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. Any of these can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. You must answer this question. What will you do with your gifts? Choose to bless the world. The choice to bless the world is more than just an act of will, a moving forward into the world with the intention to do good. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement that in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, and mystery abide. There is an embrace of kindness that embraces all life, even yours. And while there is injustice, apathy, or evil, there moves beyond a holy disturbance, a benevolent rage, a revolutionary love, protesting, urging, insisting that what is sacred will not be defiled. Those who bless the world live their life as a gesture of thanks for this beauty and this rage. The choice to bless the world can take you into solitude to search for the sources of power and grace, native wisdom, healing, and liberation. More, the choice will draw you into community, the endeavor shared, the heritage passed on, the companionship of struggle, the importance of keeping faith, the life of ritual and praise, the comfort of human friendship, the company of earth, the chorus of life welcoming you. None of us alone can save the world. Together, that is another possibility waiting. Should I move on into the message? All right. So I was riding in a car with my father the first time I heard the phrase, "May you live in interesting times." He explained then, and probably many of you know, that that was considered a curse. But the thought perplexed me. How could it be anything but good to live in interesting times? I loved interesting things. Interesting books kept me up most of the night. Interesting games made long waits pass quickly. Why wouldn't we want to live in interesting times? Perhaps some of you know where this is going. Over the last 10 years, here are just a few of the interesting things that have happened. We've seen several of the hottest years on record. We've learned how to 3D print an amazing variety of things, including medicine, skin, lamps, equipment, and even a shell for a tortoise that lost his in a fire. We faced a worldwide pandemic. We've had our Supreme Court overturn Roe versus Wade. We as a nation have overturned much of the progress toward racial and gender equality. We witnessed a dangerous rise in authoritarianism and Christian nationalism. We returned to the moon, taking the first woman, the first Canadian, the first person of color, and the oldest person to ever go further from the earth than anyone else. We saw the inauguration of the first woman, first Black and Asian Vice President of the United States. We've seen more and more people being forced out of their homes and countries by poverty, violence, climate change. We find the United States disappearing people off the streets and imprisoning more than any other country in the world. We are living in a time when technology is advancing at an exponential rate, bringing new ethical concerns about privacy and intellectual property and environmental impact, but also new opportunities such as the ability to have a minister speak to a congregation from far away. We live in interesting times, and I would argue that whether they are a blessing or a curse can have something to do with our values and how we choose to respond to them. We don't always know what challenges and opportunities will come next, but we can prepare ourselves spiritually for life in interesting times. And this is where engaging our moral imagination can serve us. The phrase moral imagination was first coined by the 18th century philosopher Edmund Burke and was concerned about the choices being made by revolutionaries in France. A more contemporary writer, Mark Johnson, defines moral imagination as the ability to imaginatively discern the various possibilities for acting in a given situation and to envision potential help and harm that is likely to result from the given action. When President Barack Obama received the Nobel Prize, he said, "Achieving peace and prosperity in the world requires the continued expansion of our moral imagination, an insistence that there is something irreducible that we all share." In other words, the concept of moral imagination asks us to be imaginative as we look at possible solutions to our problems. Then it goes a step further by calling us to keep the needs of others, of the community, front and center to our decision-making process. In other words, how will this decision impact others, perhaps even outside of our community? Another way to approach this would be to consider what it might look like if the problem was solved. Does your vision of the solution align with your values? In Dr. King's famous "I Have a Dream" speech, he spent the entire beginning of that speech laying out many of the problems faced by people of color, the discrimination, the segregation, the police brutality. He continued to describe a world shaped by what he hopes to achieve, a world that exemplified freedom and justice. Dr. King's dream was shaped by moral imagination. It was not bound by the norms of the day, by the hierarchies that were taken for granted in his world. He was asking people to join him in imagining something different, to engage in what conservative writer Russell Kirk said, the apprehending of right order in the soul and right order in the commonwealth. So let's lean into that just a little more. I remember an imagination brainstorming game from when I was a child. The idea that you have 5 million ping pong balls and you have to get rid of them. What do you do with them? I'm going to give you just a minute to reflect on that. You can talk to people around you, or if you're joining us on Zoom, you can put it in the chat. But what would you do with 5 million ping pong balls? coming up with some interesting answers. When the kids were asked to do this, they came up with a variety of ideas as well, including dumping them in the ocean, sending them to Mars, and giving them away in cereal boxes. The purpose of this ping pong ball exercise is to encourage kids and adults to think of new solutions to problems by engaging with creative brainstorming. If everything is possible, you might come up with a solution that you never expected otherwise. This is a silly example compared to problems we face today. How do we keep one another safe? How do we protect our immigrant neighbors? How do we protect our planet? How will we live out our values in this world? What will be our next steps as a community? We must use our imagination to engage with interesting times in which we live. Elizabeth Reid Boyd, a lecturer at Edith Cowan University, says, "To imagine is to form a mental image, to think, to believe, to dream, to picture. It is both idea and ideal. Our dreams can take us from the small acts of empathy to noble visions of equality and justice. Imagination charges the flame. It puts us in touch with our creativity, our life force. In a world of increasing global conflict, imagination has never been more important." I agree with Elizabeth there. Humans are creative beings. As the Abrahamic religions put it, we are created in the image of a creator. It is our life force. And it is by engaging with the flame of our creativity, charged by our imagination, that we bring greater life into this world. When faced with a challenge in our interesting times, each of the solutions we come up with might meet some need. Applying our moral imagination to the solutions helps us consider the needs of others and the consequences of our decisions. Let's go back to the ping pong balls. Moral imagination calls us to engage our values with possible solutions. The first solution the children came up with was dump them in the ocean, which we seem to do with a lot of unwanted things in this country. Mark Johnson would encourage us to ask, what's the potential help and harm from the solution? The students would have accomplished their goal. They wouldn't have direct possession of the ping pong balls anymore, but 5 million ping pong balls would float on the ocean, creating more of a trash problem, possibly being eaten by ocean wildlife, impacting life, human and non-human, for generations to come. So they really solved the problem of getting rid of the ping pong balls? Moral imagination asks us to understand our own values and keep the consequences of our decisions in mind when we come up with creative solutions to the challenges we face. It asks us to question the assumptions we bring to problem solving, especially our assumptions about who and what matters most. It asks us to be open to new possibilities. In Unitarian Universalist circles, we sometimes discuss the idea of God. As I pulled together ideas for the sermon, I found a definition of God that was intriguing and seems to apply to what we're talking about today. Dr. Mark Gaffini says, God is the possibility of possibility, limitless imagination. The first of the 10 Commandments is, I am God. When this God is asked to identify God's self, God responds, I will be what I will be. That is, you cannot capture me in the frozen image of any time or place. To do so would be to destroy me. It would be to violate the second commandment against idolatry. So if idolatry is the freezing of God in a static image, to freeze God in the image is to violate the invitation of imagination. It is to limit possibility. Isn't that an intriguing idea? That the divine is limitless imagination? Yeats wrote, all worthy things, all worthy deeds, all worthy thoughts are works of art or of imagination. What if we treated our own ability to imagine as a connection to the sacred, to the mystery of life? Engaging our moral imagination is a skill set we seek to cultivate as Unitarian Universalists. We don't tend to be a people who just stick to the way things are normally done, but there are times when even we get stuck in our assumptions about who and what matters most, about which solutions should and should not be considered viable. But we come to this community with a diversity of beliefs, perspectives, backgrounds, and this is the strength of our communities in producing imaginative responses. We need to be prepared to go beyond normal ways of doing things to see if there's a better way, a new or unexpected way that will respond to the interesting times in front of us. Congregations across the country use moral imagination and some creative help to respond to the needs born from the pandemic. Even when we were apart, we worked to find creative ways to remain connected. In the future, people may look back and think the solutions we found were obvious, but we know that that's far from the truth. More recently, congregations have used moral imagination to consider their responses to brutal and unlawful immigration enforcement actions in their communities. And once again, there may come a time when people tell the stories of today and think our responses were obvious, obviously right or obviously wrong, but we know that they were part of the hard and intentional work of staying connected to our moral imagination. Those of you who have sat in long meetings discussing what matters most and which possibilities might best attend to the many needs present in our congregations and our communities have been striving to engage with their moral imagination for years now. And this will continue to be called on as the crisis faced by our nation and our world continues. So how do we strengthen that? We do it by being clear about our values, by talking to one another, talking to people who have different experiences from ourselves, by cultivating empathy. We also reinforce our moral imagination by engaging with creativity in other areas of life. Look at art that moves you. What is it saying to you? What message is the artist trying to convey? Engage with music and dance. Elizabeth Reed Boyd says, let music move you. To enchant means to infuse with song. While music can be wordless, it infuses us with empathy. According to 2018 research published in Frontiers Journal, music is a portal into the interior lives of others. Dance can also contribute to what has been conceptualized as kinesthetic empathy. Spectators can internally mimic or simulate the movement of dancers. Read or write poetry, stories, or epic novels. Engage with words in ways that move you, in ways that change your perspective, in ways that open up new possibilities. And attend to the living stories of those you encounter every day. The people who you find yourself chatting with after church, the cashier helping you at the grocery store, the person asking for help on the street corner, the coworker seeking a sympathetic ear about a challenge at the office. Through art, through stories, through those around you, seek out perspectives and experiences beyond your own, so your moral imagination will be fully engaged when you are called upon to make decisions. My beloved companions on the journey, we live in interesting times. And while it may be challenging, it can also be exciting and unexpected and full of possibility. May we cultivate our moral understanding and strengthen our creativity so that we can meet anything interesting that comes our way. Blessed be. Amen.
Thank you again, Reverend Jen, for joining us here this morning and for your message today. We continue our collective prayer by coming forward to engage in our weekly ritual that helps us to collectively hold the challenges and joys of being human. As you light a candle, let it hold your hopes, memories, and gratitudes for this beautiful, complicated world and for our lives. And as you drop a stone in our sacred gathering waters, may it be an opportunity to imagine those burdens and quests for forgiveness held in a community that will let the stone land with care and intention. Please come forward. offering we collect each week supports us in being the community that can best respond to the needs of these times. As we collect our offering today, we remember our interconnectedness and interdependence. And we generously offer our care with hopes to support all in these times. Please rise, embody your voice, and facing the center aisle, sing together the offering song printed in your order of service. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share every we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Your abundant generosity is part of modeling care and love. Thank you. All right, we have a few announcements. So first off, religious exploration for children 5 through 10 is for real, starting next week, April 26th. We are looking for a few more volunteers to help teach these classes. Curriculum will be provided, and we will love to see your children and grandchildren there. Please contact me if you have any questions. For those of you who have volunteered, you will receive an email from me with more specifics today. The UUCO choir welcomes you to participate and sing with us. We would love to have you at our morning rehearsals on Sundays at 8:45 a.m. Please contact Joseph, our music director, if you have any questions. Bring your family and friends to celebrate Earth Day with Grow Ogden this Saturday from 4 to 5:30 p.m. right outside this building in the parking lot and garden area. This family-friendly event includes hands-on activities, interactive booths, nature experiences, live animals, wildflower packets, bike safety, live music, and a topper. 4 o'clock p.m. to 5:30. All right, I think there are another couple of announcements. So, Craig?
This is a bit short notice, but tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. there is going to be a symphony orchestra concert at Abravanel Hall down in Salt Lake City by the Skyward Symphony. This is a orchestra that my wife and son participated in, for anyone that knows them. But the concert is called Let Us Tell You a Story, and the theme is music from orchestras that have a storyline. So there will be narration. It features music from things like Peter and the Wolf and Carnival of the Animals, and is a free concert. So if anyone would like to come, just show up at Abravanel Hall tomorrow night, April 20th at 7 p.m.
So all of you have been very supportive of my exhibition, Traveling, with purchases of my days in Washington, D.C., and it looks like I'm Ruthless Not Homeless has a good chance of being shown at the National Women's Art Gallery in Washington, and it's not owned by the government, so we get to do what we want. Anyway, we don't know when that's going to happen, but there's a good chance, so thank you, Diane.
Okay, this is about another concept. We're a musical congregation here, and there's a flyer that goes with it. Here's the picture, but this is about a 1-minute announcement. I'll just read it to you. It says, "In today's world, it seems so many things are divided. Division in our nations, our communities, and even our families. Being divided and divisive is easy. Peace is hard and challenging. But in the challenge, there lies deep power and beauty." My choir, Solid Choral Artists, is performing Benjamin Britten's seminal anti-war work, The War Requiem, on April 24th and 25th. That's this Friday and Saturday at Lady Gardner Concert Hall on the U of U campus at 7:30. This piece uses the Latin Requiem text to express pleading for peace and mercy, juxtaposed with poetry by Wilfred Owen, a soldier who fought and died in World War I. The music is challenging, but as we have worked through this challenge, we have found deep power and beauty, and know you will too. This work is profoundly moving and powerful, and everyone should experience it sometime in their life. It is needed now more than ever. Won't you join us in our call for peace? And I have a few more of these flyers if you want one of those, just to see me after, and hope to see you there.
As the service comes to an end, please join me in saying these chalice extinguishing words in your order of service. We extinguish this chalice with the light of love, the light of truth, nor the energy of action.
May you go from this place with hearts open to possibility. May you imagine a world more just than what you find. May you let compassion, empathy, hope expand beyond the boundaries into the creative invitation of a moral imagination. Go in peace, go in love. Blessed be.
For our closing hymn, we're singing number 1024 in the teal hymnal, When the Spirit Says Do. And we are changing the words a little bit from what it says in there. For the first verse, it will be sing do when the Spirit says do. And then on subsequent verses, will be sing when the Spirit says sing. For the third verse, pray when the Spirit says pray. And then for the final verse, serve when the Spirit says serve. So do, sing, pray, serve. And I will call out the word at the end of each verse.